You look cute as hell. It's just
I'm
like, where's your neck?
I'm hiding in my Lululemon Scuba right now, just feeling
Got it.
extra cozy. Speaking of cozy, let's get cozy on the pod. We're back. It's Lauren Duletsky.
And I am Jackie Jamelis. How goes it, people?
How goes it? We are here again to talk about women's sports at the intersection of women's lives, and there is always so much to talk about.
Yeah, we never have to stress over topics because there's always some shit popping off.
There is always shit popping off. Before
Even
we
if we wanna sit and just, like, dive into Love Is Blind too, like, we could also do that. That's the beauty of this podcast.
Before we jump into our first kind of bigger story to unpack, let's talk about a couple CBA updates because I feel like, there really isn't an update still, but it definitely feels like tensions are heating up. And I bring that up because Natasha Cloud, who's a leading guard for the New York Liberty, posted about a 6-minute video. She might have actually gone live on TikTok and she just like popped off about all of her perspectives. It was such a powerful video. I've watched it like 10 times. And something she said that stood out to me, and then I'll pass it over to you, is, when they're negotiating rev share and the league keeps saying, we're losing money, we're losing money. She gave a specific example from All-Star Weekend where the person who owns the Seattle team, they basically were saying, like, you don't understand, we're losing all these money. And Tosh was like, but what you don't understand is that we know there's tax write-offs. We know that you can make money through other rev opportunities because you can rent out the stadium. Like there's brand, there's like all these things that people don't really
Smart.
talk about. And I was like, that was an unlock for me. So anyway, just highly recommend everybody go watch Tasha's video on TikTok. But what are your thoughts, Jack, as more of the expert in this space?
Well, leave it to Tosh to really just speak her mind. I love her for that. Um, yeah, I mean, great points, but really valid points that she brings up. Like you said, there's not a ton to report on right now. The league came back with a counter and it was just a minimal increase, like point something, not even like 1%. So I think both sides are just being super stubborn still. And like, I feel like I sound like a broken record because we've been down this path of just like, hey, both sides are still very far off. Hopefully, and I might have said this last episode, which was last week. I think 2, 3 more weeks, and hopefully we'll get this thing done. Where the WNBA draft stands today is April 13th. I don't foresee that date changing. There's too much stuff at stake right now with brands coming in and really activating around that day. So, yeah, I think right now one side is going to have to just bite the bullet and accept where the offer is going to stand, and hopefully that happens in the next 2 to 3 weeks.
And we've talked about this. We are witnessing one of the greatest labor disputes in sports in a long time right now. And I think one thing else, just, to go back to Tasha's video that I think is really important is I think a lot of the players are feeling like the league is treating them as if they're not business people, as if they don't have, as if they didn't go to elite universities and get elite degrees and start their own companies and they understand basic economics. And I think that tracks for women generally. Like a lot of times people underestimate what we're capable of.
Mhm.
And I think that in Tasha's statement was just a really good reminder that there's biases everywhere. And, these women are elite, not just on the court, but in their knowledge. They're not just athletes. They're so much more than that. That's what we stand for here on this show. And I just thought she did a really beautiful job explaining that statement in a way that just, like, I could see it being a quote in a book someday about this labor dispute. So let's hope for a WNBA season. Sounds like from your perspective, we are headed in the right direction. Like it's going to happen.
Yeah,
Brands,
I mean, if I had to bet money on it, there's gonna be a WNBA season.
but it just might get pushed back.
Potentially, yeah, hopefully not, though.
Okay. Well, we'll be continuing to watch. Who knows? We might be recording this podcast. We're recording on a Friday. Who knows? Some news can drop tomorrow or maybe during this podcast that we miss. But right now we're still in a bit of a waiting pattern, but we just wanted to talk about it quickly.
Yep.
Jack, we're heading towards the end of the Olympics. What an incredible Olympic Games we've had. I think, you know, there's been so many big stories in this Olympics that both translate in the sport, but also beyond the sport. We'll definitely in our upcoming episode talk about our favorite moments in the Olympics because there's been so many. Shout out to Team USA women's hockey for that literally
Epic
biter,
performance.
epic performance, edge of our seat situation here,
Right.
competition.
All I
What
know is that during the middle of the day, you were watching the game, and I was like, "Damn, I wish I could be watching it right now."
I know. I did post kind of a non-humble, like, very braggy post about, being an entrepreneur, you can have sports on anytime because you could be at home in your pajamas.
That's a fact.
But there's been so many incredible moments, and something that's kind of stood out for us as a bigger theme, and in fact, we often look at the comments in threads or on Instagram to really see where the stories are. And one of the things fans have been calling out a lot is just how inappropriate the traditional media are and how they build up these athletes with such insane expectations with clickbait headlines. And then when the athletes don't deliver at the level that these media houses have like built them up on, it's just like this huge house of cards. And I thought there's nobody better to talk about pressure. And we'll talk about some specific examples of that. I thought that you could really speak on pressure and like what that feels like as an athlete that could be really helpful for our listeners because it doesn't help when the media is propping you up on this huge bar, like raising this bar beyond maybe what's appropriate. And then just like a massive crash out happens. So just curious to get your perspective there.
Yeah, so let me start off by saying that pressure is a privilege, and I think that a lot of players who feel that level of pressure at such a high level, it is a privilege, and that's perspective to keep in mind. But there is a fine line between that and reality. And the reality of all of that pressure is so much goes into it that a lot of people outside in the media, for example, don't understand. They will never understand because they're not in the same shoes as these athletes. Pressure plays a very big role in performance as well. And so many players who go through this level of pressure, it takes a toll mentally on them. And I have seen players in situations where pressure has overtaken their bodies, has overtaken their minds, and they, so to speak, shit the bed, right? And it's a really sad thing to see because a really good test in basketball when it comes to pressure is when a game is on the line and you're at the free throw line and you're shooting free throws to either win or lose the game. That is such a high pressure moment, right? And it is such an easy shot. You're shooting a free throw, right? You could shoot that with your eyes closed. But because of all the excess pressure, sometimes people choke. And I think the way the media handles situations like that, with that amount of pressure on someone's shoulders is so unaware and disheartening because it is such a hard thing to deal with. And sometimes it's not even your performance. It's just the outside noise that is why you missed that shot, right? And then you have players like Caitlin Clark or Angel Reese who have brought so much attention to the game of women's basketball and the amount of pressure that they have to perform, to sustain their fandom around them, to be role models, to act perfectly in every situation. That is such an immense amount of pressure for these young women who are in their low 20s. I mean, they are carrying on their shoulders a game, a whole game, and a whole generation of women's basketball right now. And I can't imagine what that level of pressure feels like. Those two players in particular have handled themselves at such a high level and they've still been able to perform. And I wish nothing but the best for them. And I think that that's a big testament to the people that they have around them and what they're doing for themselves to perform at that level.
That was incredible. Such a great perspective. I love pressure is a privilege. I think all of us feel pressure at some level. I don't think all of us feel the same level of pressure as athletes do at, that with the public eye. And we know the public eye is more fractured than ever before as far as anybody can have an opinion now, and it can go viral. Like that's so tough. Um, and I think bringing it back to the Olympics, specifically with figure skating and with snowboarding with some of the athletes, figure skating is such a traditional sport. And there are people like Alyssa Liu who is breaking the standards, or Amber Glenn, who are breaking the standards for what, traditional figure skating has been like. And that, I think, is opening people's eyes to the power of sport and the power of having a different way to do it,
Mhm.
and to be accepted and to have a different type of fan base with different types of expectations. A lot of this conversation in the Olympics also stemmed from Ilya, or the quad god as they dubbed him. On the men's side, he was expected to take home Olympic gold in basically everything. And in his short program, it did not go his way. And it just, the like media frenzy around it was insane. And I think a lot of people were saying, like, let this guy be. Like, look at this guy who, the second he loses, he goes over and talks amicably and hugs his competitor. And you see this beautiful play out of sportsmanship, right? And I think the sportsmanship, for the most part, there's definitely been some not great sportsmanship, but the sportsmanship from so many of these athletes in the Olympics has been world class. And I think is a great example for all of us who are dealing with tricky situations to say, when we lose, it's not a bad thing. It's not a bad thing to lose. It's a great thing. The best learnings come from losing. What he has done in the Olympics is a beautiful manifestation of that. But also, to your point, Jack, the things he is probably thinking and what's going on in his head, and they have no space. Like Amber Glenn just had to protect another competitive figure skater who was having a moment because the media were just frenzying on her when she was upset. And it's like, give these athletes a moment of privacy to have a feeling. Like, it's so important. I just think the media, particularly the traditional media, they're starving to stay alive right now. And so they will do whatever it takes. Like, it feels like they're like more paparazzi now than they are like
Yeah.
media in some
Yeah.
ways. And I don't know, for me, it was just a really interesting juxtaposition this Olympics, seeing, because now we have social media, the fan responses to all of these situations and how traditional media handled it. And my ask for traditional media is like, you matter. You matter. We all matter. This is an interesting dichotomy we live in now from a media perspective, but you don't have to be that way to win in media. You have to figure out how to adopt what works in media now. I feel like this Olympics, like if someone were to write a book about it, it would be like the story of how pressure played out.
Yeah.
But that's just my perspective.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's great perspective, and I think because you've watched a lot of the Olympic Games and you know the stories, like, this is something that has been on your mind, top of mind, because it's so important to talk about too, because, like, the reality of it is most people don't know what it feels like, and people just talk about it, and people add fuel to the fire. I think what really makes someone exceptional is when they can come back, like you talk about losses and that be a part of, you know, the story. If When you're able to come back from a big loss and still get back to a very high level, that is such mental fortitude, and that is where champions become champions, because yes, it's a lot physical, but it's so much mental too. And I can, just briefly speak for myself. After I had all my knee injuries, I could never mentally get back to that place that I was before. And that for me is what held me back, was the mental piece of it. So I know what that pressure feels like, and it was too much for me to get back to that high level that I once was before. But no one can understand that except me, and that's okay. But I just more grace around that topic would be so great. But like you said, media is damn near paparazzi at this point, and they're just trying to get a story and trying to get, clickbait and all the things, and you're doing that at the expense of the mental health of these athletes and also like just the well-being of them, and it sucks.
It really sucks. And frankly, I think the fans are reporting on some things better than the traditional media, and that's a
Seriously.
sad truth. I think it's a sad truth, and anyway, it's just an interesting time to be in media and it's an interesting time to be in sports. Not to mention that there was an added layer of pressure for Team USA athletes, especially because of what's happening in the US with our administration. And they felt
Mhm.
like they had to use their platform to speak out, which bravely so many of them did. And so proud of them. So, so proud of them.
Yeah.
Um,
No, for sure, and I just wanna say too, from the pressure perspective, pressure, like you said earlier, literally applies to everyone in whatever they're doing. It could be in corporate, it could be in your job, right? Everyone feels some level of pressure. Um, Even just people having to provide food for their family and put clothes on their kids' backs, like, that is all pressure, you know? So we all live in that, and it's just something to really think about and give people grace because everybody has their own story with pressure.
Absolutely. Let me end this section by saying an interview that will forever live rent free in my brain is when Eileen Gu was interviewed by someone from the press, and he basically asked her how did it feel to win 2 silver medals but lose 2 gold medals, and she was like,
What a bitch.
effectively, she responded, I am one of the best women's free skiers in history. And you have no idea what it's like to win a
Yeah.
medal in the Olympic Games. So,
Go ahead, girl.
thank you next. So, highly recommend if you haven't watched that interview. I will replay that anytime I'm feeling like someone's trying to dim my light.
That is a crazy thing to ask someone at that level. Like, he definitely whoever that reporter was definitely trying to get attention.
Well, he definitely went viral. So,
Yeah, well, I guess he did what he was set out to do.
and
What
I
a
just
little bitch.
yeah, it was anyway, so that was a really positive moment where I felt like Eileen handled pressure very, very well.
Yeah,
But
definitely.
But yeah, closing out the games, what a season. Can't wait for LA 28. Can't even imagine where sport's gonna be at by 2028. Um,
We
but
should
let
literally unpack that. Like, what is sports gonna not now, but at some point, what is sports gonna look like in 2028? It's gonna
love
be
that.
wild.
We should do predictions for 2028.
Alright.
Love that, Jack. Great idea. But let's talk about our other favorite sport because I know that you broke the seal and watched Love is Blind, the new season.
Wait, our other favorite sport?
It's trash sport.
Love that. Nice. Fast forward, here we are.
So you
I did
guys,
break the seal.
I promise we won't talk about Love is Blind every episode, but some shit went down in this
Wait,
latest drop.
before we go further, I don't know what episode that you're on, so we need to tailor that because I'm on, like, episode 8-ish, I'm not that far in.
So let's talk about 2 themes that are insane that women should just not put up with, okay? One, let's talk about Chris and Jess, incredible, accomplished internal medicine doctor. I believe she's internal medicine. Chris is some workout guy, okay? And all of a sudden, Chris feels like it's okay to tell her he's not attracted to her body because she doesn't work out. The way it was delivered, even he identified himself as a dickhead for saying it. I couldn't even imagine being in her position, this incredibly beautiful, accomplished woman who has a beautiful body. And this man is sitting in front of her telling her she doesn't. Like, the math doesn't math for me. So, what is your perspective?
Okay, well, here's what I wanna say. First and foremost, she handled herself so well. She took that information and was so classy and was so mature and made her so much more attractive to me. I already thought she was attractive, agreed. I think she's a beautiful woman. She's a doctor. She's smart. She's got a bubbly, cute personality. She was great. What I appreciate from him is his honesty. What I don't like from him is she mentioned 3 days before that he was telling her how beautiful and how great she was, and then 3 days later, he just slaps her with this, right? What I will say is I admire the fact that he was really honest that he wants someone or probably needs someone or learned that he needs someone who works out, okay? And coming from someone who's a workout fanatic, right? I can understand wishing or wanting your partner to also be somewhat of a gym rat or somewhat that be a part of their routine and their life. Okay? So, I'm not saying that he delivered his message perfectly, okay? But he could have gone through this process and left her ass at the altar because of this reason why
Hmm,
that he didn't like.
it's a good point.
So I think in the past we've seen these couples pretend like they like each other or pretend like they're physically attracted to each other, but at the end of the day that ain't real. It's not for real.
Yeah.
So I appreciated that. Again, I don't think his delivery was great. I think he came off a little arrogant in the way that he was speaking, so wasn't cool with that, but she was phenomenal. She handled that so gracefully. That's my take.
I agree. I think that was a great perspective. Let me just counter with one thing. I do think that men often verbally pick apart women's bodies more than women would pick apart men's bodies in that kind of
For
situation.
sure.
And I just think that it's not acceptable and men need to work on their delivery when it comes to something
For
like that.
sure. For
Like,
sure.
and even if Nick knows, if I ask him a question about my body as an example, he knows his place on
Right.
like how to handle that. And
Yeah.
so, especially just because of the trauma we've been through from decades of just how the media has treated women's bodies. Let's quickly unpack the second thing, which is Alex and Ashley. I think his name is Alex, the soccer player dude,
The really hot soccer
the
coach. Let's keep
nomadic
it real.
man. He's
Yeah.
no longer hot to me after this last episode. Um, him grilling her about her period and her cycle and the way he was treating her period like she doesn't know how to control her body I was so triggered. I was like, if some man
I knew you were gonna be triggered by
I
this.
was like, if some man sat there and was like, asking me about how I control my cycle, I was like, I'm gonna pop
You
off
were
at this.
fuming at this. I knew.
Yes.
I already knew.
And you know what made me sad is like this woman, at least I'm sure she's like she seems like a very confident woman. She's absolutely stunningly beautiful.
So
But
cute.
like in that moment, you could see her retract into the shell because of the way he was treating her. And I was like, it shook me. I was like, girl, big red flag, run out that door.
I didn't
So
really understand what he was saying about her period. Can you break that down?
I think my understanding is he does not want to have kids. Like he is like, I am not ready. And he is trying to mansplain how periods work to her and that there's periods of time within her period that she could potentially get pregnant when she's ovulating. And she's like, I know how my body works. Quit mansplaining about my period to me.
Right, right, right. So this goes back to my point with the last couple. I think she's so cute, but that is not his type. He has made that clear. You could tell he's not going to choose her at the altar. I don't know if they're even going to get there, but he's not going to accept her at the altar. I put money on that right now.
I do too.
And I think that he is saying those types of things because he doesn't really fuck with her, you know? And like he's like, I don't want you to get pregnant and this and that. Well, like, yeah, you don't want to get her pregnant because you don't want to be like tied up with her. Like you don't want to be with her, you know? So yeah, it wasn't nice. It didn't feel good. I know the
Mm-mm.
period thing got your wheels turning. I was just like, he just looks like a dick. Like, the way his facial expressions were and how he was moving his mouth, I'm like, "You look like an asshole. You need to get slapped right now."
That's going to be a quote.
He did. He needed to get slapped. Like, she should have leaned over and smacked him.
That was and look, Jackie and I are both in happily married relationships. I've been with my partner, my husband Nick, for almost 15 years. I can tell you, you have and Jackie can too. You have to fight every day for your marriage. You have to fight every day in a relationship. And by fight, I mean like fight for it. It is hard. Just because you
Choose
get
your
to the
partner.
altar, yeah, choose your partner wisely. So if there are red flags as those that have been playing out in this current season, ladies, run for the hills.
Run
Run
for
for
the
the
hills.
hills.
Like, stop trying to make some shit work that you know isn't working. I'm like, why are we wasting everyone's time? Is this gonna
For
be
views.
another season where no couples end up getting married? No, the black dude with the dreads and the blonde girl that went to
So cute.
Napa.
Obsessed with that.
That's the couple.
Okay, let's put our money on that. They
Yeah,
are
they're
gonna
getting
make it to
married.
the altar.
Yeah, I think they'll hit some, like, adversity along the way, but
Mhm.
nothing that they can't get past. I think they're genuinely fit for each other. They're so cute. I love them.
This couple is it,
Yeah.
and it was
Yeah,
just so beautiful.
they're a beautiful couple inside and out.
Ugh, love them.
Same.
Okay, well, we could literally have a whole episode about Love is Blind,
Yeah,
as you
we'll
could
stop.
tell, but we'll stop and we'll get back to sports because we also love talking about sports, obviously. So, Jackie, big news from one of our favorite WNBA players, Breanna Stewart, or Stewie, as we call her. So, she has been teasing us for a while that she has some secret, and everyone thought the secret was, oh, we're going to get the WNBA CBA done.
Yeah,
Well,
she was
that
probably sitting behind her phone like, "Ha like, "All
well,
y'all are
that
tripping."
wasn't the secret. The secret was she has committed to go overseas and play for Turkey. I am going to not pronounce the name of the Turkey team correct, so if you can, that would be amazing.
Yep, Stewie is going to play for Fener, one of the top teams in Turkey, one of the top teams across EuroLeague. Historically has just been incredible, and they have a lot of money too.
Yeah, I hope they're paying her more than the WNBA is paying her. But a lot of fans were like, or a lot of fan responses were, does this mean there's not going to be a WNBA season? If someone this high profile is already committing overseas, and you and I talked about this, and I think we had a really good discussion, so we should revisit it.
Yeah, well, I think it's important to note that the Fener season, it does not overlap with the WNBA season. The end of the Fener season, yeah, like EuroLeague championships and Turkish championship could intersect a little bit with the beginning of like training camp and stuff like that. I don't know the exact timelines date to date, but there could be a tiny bit of overlap, but nothing that's going to like hold her back from a WNBA season by any means. So I don't think that is the case. From my understanding, a lot of players want to get the CBA done. So like I'm sure that she's going with the intention of I'm going to go make hella bread and then the CBA is going to get finished, right? Also, I think it's important to note her wife is Spanish. Her wife is from Spain. So going overseas is closer to her wife's family as well. And Stewie is a player that has had a lot of experience in Europe. She has built a lot of her basketball career by playing in Europe. These new players, the young players, are never going to know what that's like. So Stewie is still in that generation where she has played at the highest levels in EuroLeague. She's made a ton of money overseas. She's expanded her game in ways that you can't get that level of exposure if you're not playing overseas. So Stewie is still a product of overseas basketball, and I personally love the fact that she started Unrivaled. She's advocating for this amazing stateside league, but she's still also going to play overseas because she knows that's what's good for her. And she knows that is going to make sure that her game is at the highest level possible.
Literally, mic freaking drop. Mic freaking drop.
I mean, it's just it's true. Like I wish some of these younger players go and experience what that is like because there is nothing like playing overseas and playing in Europe and playing abroad and getting that experience. There's nothing like it.
My greatest regret from college was not going abroad for a semester because
Yeah.
I stayed for a guy. I know, embarrassing, right?
The guy that's not named Nick, weird.
I know, cray. And every experience I've had the opportunity and blessing to go abroad, it makes me want to stay there forever just because it is so incredible. So I can't even imagine having a job overseas and getting to play and see a different style of play. And I know you are such a big advocate for that, and it helped really shape your personal career. And I think that this context matters. You know, it really matters. And I think the fan response was more so because there's just other avenues for these players to make money now that is
Yeah.
outside of the WNBA. And
Yeah.
I think that was the most interesting argument here. Granted, these are all like, you know, just fan responses because everybody just wants a WNBA season. But so everybody's reading into everything right now. But I think that, you know, Stewie going over to that makes a ton of sense.
Yeah.
And, you know, obviously if you know, when I'm gonna say if when the WNBA season is underway, Stewie's gonna be playing.
Yeah.
And She'll be staying with I think she's gonna stay with the, Liberty. There's no way they're letting her go.
Yeah, look, everyone is gonna have speculation for anything that these players do. It's natural to have conversations. "Oh, I wonder if she did this because of that." Like,
Yep.
who knows what the real reason is, but no, she's not going to play at Fenerbahce and go play overseas and miss a WNBA season. That ain't happening.
So let me dig into one other thing that you said. Do you feel like now with the WNBA shifting with more stateside leagues, even though we know these leagues, I would be shocked if these leagues didn't have a globalization plan at some point. Do you think, or is your prediction that most players coming out of college will not choose to go overseas? Or is your prediction the top players will stay here because they're going to get bigger opportunities and other players will go overseas and maybe they grow and get notoriety over there?
It depends on the situation because the great European players that are playing in college, they grew up watching EuroLeague. That is their WNBA. So these great European players are gonna wanna go overseas and play in EuroLeague.
Hmm.
Okay, now the great American players born and raised in the United States, they're probably looking at an Unrivaled or a Project B or an Athletes Unlimited as something that they'd probably prefer. But then you have some players that maybe won't get as much playing time as they wanted in the WNBA season, so they wanna go somewhere where they're gonna play, where
Hmm.
they're gonna get that exposure, and they're gonna play for, 7 months straight and have practice every day and play games and play in EuroLeague, and but it just depends on the player. European basketball is not going to completely vanish because there's still some players that are gonna build their careers off of European basketball, but are a lot of players love the idea of these shorter stateside leagues so they don't have to leave their family? Of course, but it's just gonna depend on who you ask.
Hmm. That's really interesting. Well, wild, wild west times, people in women's basketball. We say that basically every episode, but it doesn't make it any less true. So
Opportunity galore for these women. I'm
oh,
so,
yeah,
so happy.
absolutely. So much upside here. One quick news update before we move on to Coach's Corner that I think is super important to talk about is ESPN just made a big announcement that they are replacing Major League Baseball coverage on Sundays and making it women's sports exclusive coverage Sundays or during a period of time. I don't know if it's the whole day, but,
That's big time.
that's big time. That's your response to it, right?
Yeah.
So, I think there's a couple interesting pieces of feedback here, and we'll maybe dig into this more on another episode, but I think that it's incredible that a legacy brand that big, like ESPN, is making a huge viewership moment for women's sports on a Sunday. A lot of people don't like that they're calling it women's sports. Like, why not have men's sports Monday then? Like, why do you have to use that disclaimer? Would highly recommend though
Because
everybody.
media is predominantly based around men, so it's a women's sports moment.
Yeah, it's just an interesting though we've talked about this, right? Like, is women's do we like at what point do we not need the disclaimer? Like, when is it just sports, you know? And it's such an interesting discussion, but I would just shout out to everybody to go read Haley Rosen. She is the CEO and founder of Just Women's Sports, which has been a heritage media publication, one of the pioneers in fully dedicating coverage to women's sports. And she just had a really great take on it where it was like very balanced. It was like, thank you, SPN, but also. And I think we just need to remember that everybody is jumping on the women's sports train right now, including us. Like, I'm not going to not say we have completely seen the
I mean,
opportunity.
I've been here.
Oh, I mean,
I
Jackie,
just
yeah.
gotta say, I've been here.
Jackie's been here from the beginning, but like, for me, I finally saw myself where I was like, I want to dedicate all my time and
You
energy.
came in for the right reasons,
Yeah,
also.
I think I came in for the right reasons, but I think we just all need to be wary of who is jumping on, and I'm not saying ESPN is because they're such a legacy sports brand, but I just think the way that we activate women's sports has to be so intentional. I mean, you can trust just women's sports, everybody. Let's be real about that.
Mhm.
But really interesting moment in time. Will be interesting to see ESPN grow coverage because they get a lot of shit for not making they have for years for not making coverage more equitable, but interesting times.
Yeah, I'm gonna look at it as from a positive lens and, shoot, that's progress in my opinion.
Yeah, love that. Progress is progress. All right, let's move into Coach's Corner, Jack. And I know you've got some things on your mind this week, so why don't you jump in?
Okay, so my coach's corner is about my favorite tattoo on my leg that says it's the magic of risking everything for a dream that nobody sees but you. What I'll say is the reason I got that is obviously stems from my personal story with my injuries and, me really believing in myself when everyone else around me wanted me to stop playing. So I knew that I had a dream and I felt like I was alone in that because coaches, mentors, um, the physical therapy staff, doctors, even my family, they all wanted me to pivot and try something else. But I still had this dream, and I knew that nobody else believed in my dream except me. So I see that a lot in you, Lauren. And I'm not saying that you're alone in anything because I am right next to you in all of this. But I think what I've seen is the level of passion and genuine belief in our company and what we're building. And I think you have done such a beautiful job of bringing everyone around you to propel this thing and move it forward. And it's such a
You're
beautiful
making me
thing.
cry.
I see. Well, it's such a beautiful thing to witness because you are not alone in the belief, I'll tell you that right now. I believe in it too. But sometimes you aren't able to see that because of everything that I have going on, right? And I'm so busy. So I just think it's a quote that you really, really live by. But I just want you to know that, girl, I am right here with you and I ain't going nowhere. And where you're at with this, I am right there with you, boo.
Oh, wow. Did
Oh,
not imagine I was gonna
I wanna give you a hug right now, and I can't wait to give you a hug later.
Oh, well, for anybody listening and not watching, I have tears coming down my cheeks because, that
So
was just
cute.
really beautiful and so relevant right now with some things we're experiencing,
Mm,
and I just wanna say thank you for saying that,
you're
and I
welcome.
would and I love you for saying that because it's so hard. It's so hard to build anything. And, whether it's a business, whether it's a baby, whether it's a relationship, like it's
Yeah,
hard to build stuff.
yeah.
And I think life is about hard stuff. That's how we move forward. That's how we grow. That's how we get better. And I will say that
You
you're
do not need to compliment me in return, okay?
I wasn't actually.
Okay. No, look at that. I'm like, "Don't do it." You
I
aren't
know.
even there. I love
Don't
that.
you do it.
Yeah, your coach is corner.
Drying off my tears, I will say my coach's corner, I think beautifully counters that or maybe builds on that coach's corner, which is I think it's so important right now that all of us are fearless and brave when everything feels like an uphill battle. I wanna make everybody feel seen, heard, loved. I don't want tension. I don't want conflict because I really genuinely show up every day with a positive outlook. That is who I am. But sometimes you have to welcome conflict. Sometimes you have to be brave. Sometimes you have to be more fearless than you've ever been. And especially when you're starting a company, in our case, or when you're taking on a professional stage in the Olympics or whatever, you have to be so fearless. So these last 2 weeks of the Olympics have taught us anything. It's that don't be afraid. Even when things feel super uncomfortable or like you're like, want to go just hide under my covers, get out of those covers and be present and be okay welcoming that conflict because that is the only way you're going to get anywhere. And I think you will talk to any founder, and especially a female founder who's had success. You do not get where you are, and I'm sure you feel this as a former athlete, Jack. You do not get where you are without some battle wounds. So it's like that's just, we're building our armor in this business. And I think it's a beautiful maybe build to what you said because for me not to feel alone, like I have to build my own armor too.
Right,
I
right.
know people are in my corner. I know that there's so much support here, but I have to believe enough in myself
Yep.
to lead. And
Yeah.
that's what ultimately like that's this journey I'm on at this chapter in my career. So Didn't make this to mean to make this about me.
No, no, this is beautiful, and I think too with that, like, approach and that all if when you face your fears and you do things that are uncomfortable, that is when you grow. That is when you come out better on the other side. And I think that in both of our lives in different ways and in the same ways, that is exactly what we're doing day to day, and I'm so proud of you, and,
Likewise.
it's been such a fun journey watching you.
I mean, likewise. And you, I mean, for anybody that doesn't know Jackie now by this point, you
Here we
should
go with
know.
the compliments.
Well,
Believe it.
I gotta drop just one.
You
Can
don't
I?
got to.
Can I
This is
drop just
about you.
one?
No, boo. This is about you. We're
Okay,
ending it
well,
here.
then I'll think your compliment, okay?
Okay,
But
that's
I
fine.
really look, just find yourself the people that are gonna circle you and lift you and be your champion because women will rise when we rise together. And that is like, again, we're seeing that happen in the Olympics right now. You saw Alyssa Liu win gold and immediately go hug her competitor. Like you didn't used to see that in the
I don't know
Olympics.
if I
Like
would've gone that far, but that's nice.
she's like such a unique, incredible being though.
She's a unicorn.
But I genuinely think like the world needs to embrace and women need to embrace that it is no longer we need to tear each other down, but we need to rise together. Like
Yeah.
that is where we will win. It's where we'll have a female president someday. And this isn't just about like it's about equity. It's not just about women, it's about equity. And we don't want to leave our boys behind either, but it is our time.
Rising tides lift all boats.
I love that. Well, let's end on that note because that was beautiful. And we're actually going to see each other in a few hours so we can give each
We
other a hug.
I can't wait to give you a hug. But before we go, I just want to remind our listeners to please like, comment, and subscribe on all of our channels, which include YouTube, TikTok, and Instagram, where Instagram is massively popping off thanks to my girl right here.
Well, also, we need to give an update on our YouTube subscribers. We ready?
I'm guessing 28.
Well, hopefully you won't be disappointed because I think we're still at 25, but we're at 26 subscribers on
I'm
YouTube.
Look at us. Girl, we are growing one
We'll
by
get
one.
there one by one. YouTube was not built in a day.
This is a self-produced podcast too, so we doing
That's
big bangs.
we're doing things. All right. Well, we love you all. We will see you next week for another riveting episode and love you, Jack.
Love you too. Thanks, guys.